Dear members, today I'm going to talk a little bit about climate change and its impact on the profession. So climate change today is a global crisis affecting all strata of business and society. As such, the profession, as leaders, partners and stewards in business, must evaluate how we accountants can harness our specific strengths and competencies to strategize and implement the environmental, social and governance or ESG agenda for long-term sustainability. As we have seen from the devastating floods of 2021, the sporadic flash floods in 2022, as well as the extreme heat and weather events that are fueled by human-induced global warming, we ignore climate change and its consequences at our own peril. As climate change is linked to global warming, it is imperative to tackle climate change risks. Authorities such as the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or IPCC, have warned that it is now or never to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius or risk the world becoming uninhabitable in the future. So how do we limit global warming? By hitting our net zero targets for greenhouse gas emissions, which simply means that we achieve a state of equilibrium, whereby the amount of greenhouse gases entering the atmosphere is balanced by the equivalent amount of carbon being removed from the atmosphere. And how do we do this? For businesses, net zero can be achieved through transitioning towards low carbon business models, producing products which use less carbon or producing energy efficient products. Adopting ESG initiatives such as a strategy to manage the impact on the environment and so on. Adopting green technology solutions. Championing sustainable consumption such as eliminating plastic usage, recycling products that do not cause emissions, getting involved in the circular economy and so on. As well as implementing strong climate adaptation measures. That probably means drive less and fly less. According to a report by the World Economic Forum in collaboration with BCG or Boston Consulting Group entitled Winning the Race to Net Zero, the CEO Guide to Climate Advantage, the world is not yet on track to reach the Paris Agreement targets of capping temperatures at the 1.5 degrees Celsius level. On the bright side though, stakeholders are coming together to take action, spearheaded by governments and corporate leadership. According to the report, today over 90 countries representing almost 80% of global emissions have made net zero commitments, which is up from a mere 10% in 2019. Corporate commitments have also been very commendable. To quote the report authors, it is hoped that these commitments can translate into actions and investments. Early movers who demonstrate climate leadership will also be able to secure sources of business advantage. The time is ripe for bold climate action to become the norm. In alignment with the global trend, net zero is gaining momentum in Malaysia. The government has stressed that the climate change and green technology agenda is a national priority. And the commitment is contained in the third theme of the 12th Malaysia Plan, to spur sustainability. Now, according to the Prime Minister, Malaysia hopes to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across the economy by 45% based on the gross domestic product in 2030, as tabled during the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or COP26, held in Glasgow, Scotland last year. The national statement at COP26 also highlighted the country's aspiration to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions as early as 2050, subject to findings of the long-term low emissions development strategy to be finalized by the end of this year by the Ministry of Environment and Water. So what can accountants, the profession and businesses do to support the net zero journey? 1. The most pressing need is to create awareness and educate all levels of society and business on global warming and the climate crisis. All of us play a part in acquiring and enhancing our knowledge of this phenomenon and contributing to the healing of what is already a worldwide crisis. Now, as the regulator and developer of the profession, which has domain expertise in disclosure, MIA is actively advocating for accountants to upskill on ESG matters as well as climate-related measurement and reporting, as businesses are facing newfound pressure around the demands to disclose an organization's climate-related risks and opportunities. To educate the profession and the market on task force on climate-related financial disclosures. So MIA has published technical articles on implementing these disclosures, organized a 2021 conference on climate change, focusing on accountants as champions of climate change and sustainability. And we continue to embed climate change, ESG, and sustainability content across all our professional development programs. Our climate disclosure advocacy supports the efforts of our fellow regulator, Bursa Malaysia Berhad, which recently proposed amendments to the listing requirements aimed at enhancing disclosures on sustainability for listed issuers across all sectors. Now, Bursa's proposals align with the climate change-related disclosures of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. 2. We need to innovate and comply. The Malaysian government has called on organizations and individuals to tackle global warming in alignment with Malaysia's pledge to become a net zero greenhouse gas emissions country by 2050. As such, we expect a rising trend of companies adopting net zero greenhouse gas emission targets, which will also be necessary to comply with external greenhouse gas emission limits imposed by trading partners, authorities, and regulators in other jurisdictions. So in addition, these same partners, authorities, and regulators will require climate-related disclosure to assess compliance. As such, companies will need to start assessing their climate exposure and measure their greenhouse gas footprint and ESG-related impact across their operations, supply, and value chains in their effort to transition to acceptable low-carbon business models. 3. We need to engage and collaborate in order to capitalize on emerging opportunities from a growth strategy anchored by net zero and sustainability targets. The Ministry of Environment and Water, with the cooperation of the Ministry of Finance and Bursa Malaysia, will drive the implementation of the voluntary carbon market before it transitions to the domestic emissions trading scheme, which is expected to draw low carbon investments into the country, enhance the credibility and international competitiveness of Malaysian products, and enable access to sustainable financial resources for Malaysian entities. The government has also announced plans to strengthen climate change governance in the country through measures such as the establishment of the National Greenhouse Gas Centre, to improve transparency in climate change data and information reporting managed by the Centre to enhance confidence in low-carbon investment. This is an area in which the accountancy profession could potentially collaborate with key stakeholders to provide advocacy and expertise on disclosure and assurance to support our nation-building purpose. If accountants are to support the transition to low-carbon models, we need to acquire the requisite knowledge and competencies. Professional accountants, as trustworthy advisors to organizations they work with and for, are expected to be competent and cognizant in a number of things: identifying, assessing, and managing enterprise climate-related risks and net zero emission targets, calculating cost-benefit perspectives of this issue, assessing and managing its implications to the finance function of organizations, and advising employers suitably and diligently. So in short, professional accountants and finance functions play a key role in navigating the way to achieve organizational net zero emission targets, including raising and allocating funds needed for adaptation,
providing information and data to drive the agenda on the reduction of carbon emissions, embedding the reduction of carbon emissions in the decision-making process, devising strategies to achieve the committed targets, interacting with capital markets to meet the committed targets, ensuring compliance with regulatory requirements, and reporting performance against the committed targets. So given the urgency and magnitude of the climate change crisis, time is of the essence. Professional accountants should start dealing with climate-related risk and net zero targets from now on. The ultimate aim is to prevent a worsening climate crisis and to seize the opportunities that will arise in the process of transitioning to cleaner and greener energy. So in line with MIA's purpose of sustainable nation building, I urge all accountants to step forward and drive the sustainability and transformation agenda within your organizations.
To set a good example, the Institute has also embarked on its own internal energy savings initiatives to reduce our carbon footprint and support the transition to a national net zero culture. And these include launching the MIA Energy Savings Campaign to create awareness among staff, replacing existing fixtures with motion sensing lights to save energy, shifting to webinars and e-learning, educating staff and MIA stakeholders on reducing single-use plastic and paper, and switching to biodegradable utensils in the office. So I'm pleased to report that MIA has recorded increased energy savings due to reduced energy consumption patterns and successfully reduced the use of single-use plastic bottles, plastic files, paper, printing inks, and paper towels. The shift to virtual platforms in e-learning has been a key driver in carbon savings. As we go forward, MIA will continue to emphasize on hybrid learning platforms and virtual channels to not only boost access to our programs and content, but also to continue minimizing our emissions and energy use. In ending, I would like to call upon MIA members and all accountants and finance professionals to do two things in the immediate term in order to start the ball rolling on climate change action. 1. Do sign up for the MIA International Accountants Conference 2022 to be held from 8th to 9th June 2022, which will focus on climate change risks and at the same time the possibilities for transformation and the growth potential. With the theme of leading ESG, charting sustainability, the conference has been specially designed to articulate and convey the role of accountants in leading the ESG agenda in business, especially climate action initiatives for enterprise sustainability and sustainable nation building. In addition to sessions featuring experts and captains of industry, we have the privilege of hearing a special address by the IFAC President, Mr. Alan Johnson, on the topic of professional accountants driving ESG for sustainability. It is important for accountants to grasp the global profession's strategic response to the climate crisis and how accountants must adapt to drive sustainable decision-making in a net zero environment. If Alan is presenting the global perspective, then Bursa Malaysia's chairman Tan Sri Abdul Wahid Omar will present local insights on sustainability for business longevity in the conference grand finale. 2. If you have not already done so, I urge you to sign the MIA Climate Change Pledge. MIA first called upon accountants in Malaysia to sign this online pledge to tackle climate change at the inaugural MIA Climate Change and ESG Conference. By signing the pledge, you are affirming the profession's commitment to help businesses combat climate change, reflecting our professional values of integrity and trust. This pledge signals that you are actively taking accountability for your part in this pivotal and urgent process for transformation towards a more sustainable future. So attending the conference and signing the pledge are baby steps that can be taken in the lead up to achieving net zero. Eventually, MIA expects that accountants, strategists and captains of industry will be able to lead organizations in implementing the agenda to combat enterprise and sustainability risks. So by harnessing this particular collaborative effort, our professionalism and ethics will shine through, our unique qualities will be made use of, and our expertise and assurance will be in good demand. So we'll be positioned to take advantage and to inspire and implement an exciting new phase in Malaysia's growth trajectory. To end, I also would like to point out that this is my final video as President of MIA, as I will be completing my term as President on 28th of May 2022. I hope this has been a useful video for all of us to take the steps towards addressing climate change personally as well as in our organizations. Thank you very much.